What is up, everybody? Welcome back. This is Total Madness, brought to you by odds.com. My name is Clint from the Die Hard MMA podcast, and I am breaking down UFC 257 McGregor versus Poirier coming up here on Saturday from top to bottom. We already did a podcast for this show, so if you want the fight picks, the stylistic matchups, I am joined by the UFC's own Brian Boom Kelleher. Go to odds.com to check out that replay. What we're doing here today is talking about the totals. Rather than picking a winner, we're looking over. We're looking under 1.5, 2.5 rounds. How far is this thing gonna go? And even though we're coming off of a bit of a rough card on Wednesday's UFC Fight Island 8, we got a lot of those total calls pretty damn close, if not smashed. The preliminary card we absolutely crushed from a totals perspective, so we're doing okay on the total side of things, and changing shirts up here, maybe the juju is what's going on, get a different vibe flowing here, get back on track. So let's get started. UFC 257, the most anticipated card in a very, very long time, and the return of one Conor McGregor. Kicking off the night, we have got Amir Albazi taking on Zhalgas Zhumagulov. We've got a total here set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 is minus 250. The under 2.5 is plus 210. Remember, we're back in Abu Dhabi, so we've got the big cage. It's not something we talked a lot about last week, but that gives these guys a whole lot more room to move in there and stick and keep their distance. These guys are both grappling specialists. Amir Albazi's got a lot of submissions on his record. Zhalgas Zhumagulov is tested on that Russian scene. He's tough, gritty, durable. I completely agree with this over here. Minus 250 is a little bit steep, but honestly, I can't see this one going under. Zhalgas doesn't really finish anybody, and he's incredibly difficult to finish himself. Amir Albazi is not tested at the UFC level, but anytime he's taken on close to UFC caliber fighters, he hasn't been finished. That one loss that he had was to Jose Shorty Torres, where he did get out grappled for the majority of that fight. He either submits his opponents or he grinds them out with that ground game. I think this one's going the distance, and that wouldn't be a half bad prop in my opinion. Or like I said, that over 2.5, a little pricey, but I don't think anybody's getting choked out. Next up, we've got Nick Lentz taking on Movsar Evloev. Evloev, a huge prospect in the division, coming in here on short notice, filling in for his last opponent, Mike Grundy, against the veteran here, Nick Lentz. We've got a total set at 2.5 rounds. The over minus 280, the under plus 240, and this one exactly like that last one. Both these guys are solid. Both these guys are capable. They're both talented strikers. Movsar Evloev doesn't really finish anybody. He uses that grinding, grappling advantage that he has. 13-0, has yet to taste defeat, and he just completely wrecks everybody he fights on the ground. In his last fight, when he fought Grundy, one guy that maybe had a wrestling edge over him, he switched it up. He went to his technical boxing. He stuck in move. He stayed on the outside, and he put on a clinic against that man for 2 full rounds to win a very, very convincing decision. Nick Lentz is very well-rounded. He's a solid wrestler himself, nowhere near Evloev's level in my opinion. He is a good striker, but again, he's getting a little long in the tooth. He's getting a little old. I expect Evloev to win this fight anywhere it goes, but I don't know that Evloev is going to put away a guy that's tough and durable like Lentz. We saw Lentz get knocked out by Charles Oliveira very recently, but that's the last time he's been finished in several years. It's been a long time before that since he's actually been put out, and Evloev just doesn't have the power, the striking power that a guy like Charles Oliveira has, in my opinion. He's got the technique, he's got the volume, but he doesn't have that crushing, destructive power, and it's not really his game plan. So I don't expect Evloev to get a finish here. I think the over 2.5 is a pretty safe spot. You know, last week, or not last week, but on Wednesday, we talked about how I thought that card was going to be violence-filled, and sure enough, it was. This one is going to be decision-filled. I think we're going to get a lot of fights on this card that are going the full distance. Andrew Sanchez taking on Mahmoud Muradov. Andrew Sanchez riding high off of that recent knockout win that he had, and Mahmoud Muradov, the only MMA fighter signed by Team Money Mayweather. Total here set at 2.5. The over is minus 150. The under is plus 130. This one a little bit more manageable, a little bit more reasonable. Andrew Sanchez is a grappler, more than anything. Even though recently he's been working on his striking, sitting on those punches, as shown by that most recent knockout. But let's be real, Muradov is a different level than Wellington Turman. He's not going to get caught by a guy like Andrew Sanchez coming in here wild. I think that Andrew Sanchez has to go back to the grappling and cage control style that he more often than not employs. We have seen Andrew slow down later in the rounds, and because of that, I think there's a chance Makhmud Muradov catches him and finishes him in round 3. But if he doesn't end up landing that bomb in round 3, if he slows down, if he gets tired, then this one's going over. I think the only guy that finishes this fight is Makhmud Muradov. I don't see Andrew Sanchez being able to put him away. I think the over 2.5 at -150 is a pretty decent spot here on that fight. But if you wanted to look for a prop, I mean, Makhmud Muradov in round 3, that one might be a sneaky good little spot if you want an extra sweat. Light heavyweight, Khalil Roundtree taking on Marcin Prachino here. This one is an absolute shit show. It's just like the Ike Villanueva and Moreira fight on Wednesday. Khalil Roundtree pretty much retired after his last fight, decided to come back, take another fight here. Been training in Thailand, absolutely sick Muay Thai on this guy, but is basically kill or be killed in round 1. He doesn't have good takedown defense, and if you get him on the floor or you get him tired, he just looks for the way out. Marcin Prachino is 0-3 in the UFC, all 3 by first round knockout, one of those coming by Sam Alvey, which is a guy who should be fighting a weight class below him. This guy fires from the hip. He has no regard for his safety or his chin. However, he does look into mix in takedowns. If he catches a kick of Khalil Roundtree and puts him on the back, I wouldn't be surprised. So we have a total here at 1.5. Again, it's chalky. It's really nasty, but I wouldn't mind the under 1.5, even though it's -175. It's a spot where Khalil Roundtree should knock this guy out in the very first round. However, if he doesn't, I expect it to be an early finish in round 2, just like we saw from Ike on the Wednesday card. And if Marcin Prachino does manage to get Khalil Roundtree on his back, Marcin Prachnio's got some big bombs himself. It's not like he's going to suddenly become a Khabib-style wrestler and just pin this guy to the floor. He's going to be looking to ground and pound. He's going to be looking for a finish and get the ball rolling in his UFC career, get that first elusive win. So I think this thing ends in the first round. I expect Khalil Roundtree to be the guy that does it, but if Marcin Prachino has any opportunity, it will be early. So under 1.5 at -170. Next up, we've got Julianna Pena taking on Sara McMann, the 40-year-old Olympian Sara McMann, taking on Julianna Pena, who's been struggling recently, coming off of a submission loss in her last fight to Germaine de Randamie. Total set at 2.5. The over 2.5 is -225. The under 2.5 looks like it's about +180, +160 in some places. And that's, again, I really can't disagree with the juice on the over here. Both these women employ a grappling heavy style. We've got Sara McMann, who just looks to control her opponents from top position for the most of all of her fights. She's got a nasty squeeze on her, though. We have seen Pena submitted. So there's a chance, but it's not one that I plan on taking. Julianna Pena, she's been struggling lately. In these scrambling situations, in these wrestling situations, she's been getting reversed. She's been ending up on bottom. She's been burning a lot of energy, having to get back to her feet and turn those situations around. And against someone as just powerful physically as Sara McMann, I think that poses a lot of problems. And even if McMann isn't quite able to handle Julianna Pena, I don't know if Pena is going to be capable of putting McMann away unless she completely falls apart and gasses in like the third round. So again, I'm expecting this one to go over, but an incredibly sketchy fight and not one I'm planning to bet from a total perspective because of that chalky over. Next up, we've got Brad Tavares taking on Anthony Carlos Jr. Total once again set at 2.5. The over -185. The under is +160. ACJ is a backpack specialist. High-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. We saw him taking on Uriah Hall, and he barely lost a split decision. He had the cage control basically the entire time, but the judges weighed Uriah Hall's activity on the feet a little bit more than the backpacking of Antonio Carlos Jr. Brad Tavares coming out after a long layoff, trying to get back on track. He's on a 2-fight skid, and he's kind of hit that gatekeeper middle-of-the-road spot. However, he has never been submitted. ACJ isn't knocking anybody out, and if Brad Tavares minds his P's and Q's a lot like Uriah Hall did, I expect this thing to go long. I do expect Antonio Carlos Jr. to employ the grappling, try to pin him up against the cage, do the cage control thing, wear him down, try to grind on him, maybe drag him to the floor, get on his back, but I don't know that he's going to actually get that submission because, again, Brad Tavares is a guy whose submission defense has been on point his entire career. I'm expecting this one to go to decision. In fact, the over 2.5 is -185. Fight goes to decision is -150. 150. I don't see why you need those extra 2.5 minutes. If you're going to play this one, play the fight goes to decision. Minus 150 is a much better price tag, and I don't see anybody falling apart in the last 2 minutes of the fight. ACJ will more than likely either be comfortable and be looking to ride out position from a dominant spot. If he hasn't choked out Brad Tavares already, it's not like he's going to go for broke with elbows or something. It's not something we've seen from him. Same thing with Brad Tavares. If he's up 2-0, he's going to be coasting. He's not going to be looking for a finish. He should just be trying to ride out that last round. I don't see either of these guys going for broke in that last 2 minutes. And watch, now that I've said that, there's going to be a flurry, a mad dash, and someone's getting knocked out at the 10-second mark here on this fight. No, I expect it to go the distance, and if you want to play this one, it is one I'm considering myself at minus 150 just to hit the judges' scorecards, and then you don't have to worry about, who's going to end up getting the nod or the judging situation over there in Abu Dhabi as far as who's going to be the winner, because that Uriah Hall fight last time could have very easily have gone to ACJ. Arman Tsarukyan taking on Nasrat Haqparast. Now, this is a very, very intriguing fight to me. So, Arman Tsarukyan, a big favorite here, really, really hot prospect in my opinion, taking on Nasrat Haqparast, who's a guy that's severely underrated at this point in his career. He got knocked out by Drew Dober, but if it wasn't for the Dober fight, people would be super high and potentially overrating Nasrat Haqparast as well. This line does feel a little bit wide to me from a side standpoint, which is why we're talking totals. Once again, we've got 2.5. The over is minus 235. The under is plus 195. And this is a spot where, honestly, I suggest passing. The total seems like wide to me as well. Arman Tsarukyan has a grappling advantage here. Nasrat Haqparast has been very, very capable defending takedowns, sticking and moving, making sure he doesn't end up on the floor for any long period of time. We just saw Nasrat Haqparast get knocked out. Arman Tsarukyan is a very talented striker himself, although I don't envision him landing a bomb the way that Dober did. Nasrat Haqparast, however, could absolutely land a bomb. I don't see Arman Tsarukyan having the cracks in his defense to allow that. So I've got to say the over 2.5 here. But both these guys are such high caliber strikers, such high caliber fighters, that in the event there's a chance that this thing goes under. There's a chance that somebody gets finished here. Nasrat Haqparast, if he gets taken down, ground and pound submission, they're on the table. If this thing stays standing, the hand speed of Haqparast, he can always knock out pretty much anybody. So the under is very, very much alive in this spot with how dangerous these guys are. You're very, very... You'd be okay if you took that under 2.5. The problem for me, though, is they are both so tough and so durable that I think that takes away from the opportunity of a finish. So I'm just going to go ahead and pass on that one. Women's strawweight, Marina Rodriguez taking on Amanda Ribas. Ribas, once again, the star of the UFC right now, someone who is basically lighting the world on fire. Everyone is behind this girl. They love everything about her. High-level Brazilian jiu-jitsu, decent striking, coming along. She looks good on the feet. Marina Rodriguez, awful, god-awful takedown defense. No effort whatsoever to get back to her feet anytime she ends up getting put on her back. But when she decides to unload on her feet, this woman is dangerous. She's fast, she's long, she hits hard. She reminds me of a young, more powerful Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and she's going to cause problems for Amanda Ribas on the feet. This is one of those interesting spots where we might be able to take advantage of the women's ability to go over and maybe duck and take an under. The total here set at 2.5, minus 225 to the over. If Marina Rodriguez gets stuck on the ground against someone like Ribas, this isn't the Cookie Monster. She's not going to get ground out. Ribas is not an over-the-top wrestler. She's not just going to grind on her from top position. She'll be hunting for submissions. She'll be hunting for the neck, looking for opportunities to put this fight away. And she's already gone on record talking about how she wants to steal the show from McGregor and Poirier on the main card here. So I think Ribas is looking to make a statement. Similarly, on the feet, Marina Rodriguez, that power, man, this girl has nasty, nasty power. And we have seen Ribas have some defensive issues, some holes in her game when she stands on the feet. And I think there's an opportunity that if Rodriguez is able to either get back up to her feet or stuff 1 or 2 takedowns, she could potentially land that night-ending bomb on someone like Ribas, who has never tasted that kind of power before. The under 2.5 at plus 185 in this fight is very enticing to me. Next up, we've got Matt, the steamroller Frevola, taking on Ottman Azaitar. Total once again set at 2.5. We've got the over 2.5 at plus 120, the under 2.5 at minus 150. This one seems like it's really correlated. In fact, the numbers basically support the fighter that you're looking at. If you're looking at over, you're probably looking at Matt Frevola, the hard-nosed wrestler, the tough grappler that's going to put you in those situations up against the cage, put you on your back, grind on you. That's probably the guy that's going to force this thing to go over 2.5. The under 2.5 is looking at Ottman Azaitar, who's minus 155 in this spot. He's going to be the knockout threat. He's the guy that unleashes that hellish big bomb power and puts his opponent away. Now, Matt Frevola, he's a very talented wrestler. He's got big bombs himself, but the one loss he has on his record is by knockout. He's very hittable. He comes in with his arms wide. He swings big hooks. There's an opportunity for finishes to happen here, especially when you're talking about the power, the strength, and the striking prowess of one Ottman Azaitar. Azaitar, on the other hand, has never really faced a wrestler the caliber of Matt Frevola. So if there's anybody who's going to have that tough durability, who's going to grind on this guy, push him later into the fight, and then maybe even get him to the judges' scorecards and grind a decision out from him, it's somebody like Matt Frevola. This is a great prospect fight. We expect big things from both of these guys. So honestly, I can't give you too good of a read on the total here. I lean Ottman Azaitar. I lean that under 2.5. It's the same price tag, taking the fighter and taking the total. I guess you could say that Frevola has the opportunity for a submission or ground and pound if Ottman Azaitar were to gas out in the second round or something along those lines. But I don't see it happening. He's a really tough dude. And if Matt Frevola is able to take this fight, I do think Azaitar hangs in there and doesn't get put away. He's got pride on the line, if nothing else. So again, if you like Frevola, you're probably betting the over. If you like Azaitar, you're probably betting the under. Personally, I'm in the under camp, but again, not one that I'm necessarily going to bet because you might as well pick your fighter if that's the way you're looking. Women's flyweight, Jessica Eye taking on JoJo Calderwood. And once again, not a lot to say. We can save some time here. Over 2.5 is minus 360. Under 2.5 is plus 300. Neither of these women really are finishers, unless one of them has just dropped off that cliff at the ends of their careers. I don't see anybody finishing this fight. I kind of see JoJo Calderwood sticking and moving from the outside. Jessica Eye has a tendency to engage in brawls with her opponents, but she's really been durable. You know, Valentina Shevchenko was able to head kick her head off, but I don't think JoJo Calderwood is going to do that, and Calderwood is kind of a volume fighter, so even if she does get off on the feet, I don't expect her to be able to put someone like Eye away. If I were to grapple with Calderwood, Calderwood's got some underrated grappling. This one's going all the way. I see that minus 360 over 2.5 landing, but again, really not one that I'm planning on betting. Co-main event, we've got Dan the Hangman Hooker taking on Michael Chandler. This is a hell of a fight, folks. Lightweight tilt. Michael Chandler new to the UFC. We're all excited about this one. Dan Hooker, one of the most fan-friendly styles in MMA today. Total set at 2.5, and it's basically a pick'em. Slight juice to the over. I see over 2.5 is minus 120. Under 2.5 is plus 100. Some places it is a pick'em, minus 115 on either side of the line. And I would have to side with the under on this one. So Dan Hooker has been in some absolute wars lately. Dude is a next-level striker, and he's got a sick jiu-jitsu game to go with that. Michael Chandler, we've seen the power this guy holds. He's coming off of a big knockout win over Benson Henderson, and he has been knocked out himself several times. So Dan Hooker's durability is a detractor from this under hitting. He's gone 25 minutes with guys like Dustin Poirier. He's taken everything but the kitchen sink. Michael Chandler, the kind of guy that you think is going to close the distance and explode looking to get this fight done and over with, make a statement in his UFC debut, but that's the kind of style that's going to really help a guy like Dan Hooker to land some big bombs, that big long knee up the middle, you know, be able to stick on the outside and time that entry and land something big. I don't really expect these guys to get into a grappling match or anything like that and have it drag out. I think it's going to be a war, and because of that, I think it's going to go under 2.5. That under 2.5 at plus 100 even money, that's the way I would look in this spot. Main event time. We have got Dustin the Diamond Poirier taking on Conor the Notorious McGregor. And what we've got is one more total here set at what looks like 2.5. Over 2.5 is plus 160. Under 2.5 is minus 185. Public perception is everything here, folks. This is a spot where we've seen Conor's power. We saw him take out Donald Cowboy Cerrone the last time around in 60 seconds. He's already doing the Mystic Mac, and he's predicting a finish within 60 seconds of Dustin Poirier. But let's look at Dustin Poirier. This is a guy who's gone 25 minutes in absolute wars with guys like Dan Hooker, like we just talked about, and he simply does not give out. This is a guy who won the violence belt by taking both Eddie Alvarez and Justin Gaethje deep into their fights and taking everything they had and then turning the tables on them late when they started to slow down. Conor McGregor is not the guy that's going to engage in those kind of nasty brawls. Conor McGregor is a sniper. This man is going to pick his shots. He will flurry, he will disengage, and then he will go again. So the question is, does Dustin Poirier have the durability to hold up to the power of Conor McGregor? He took everything Justin Gaethje had to offer and is still standing. I do think Dustin Poirier, that chin is prime for cracking because of all the damage that he's taken, but I don't think it's going to be a situation like Cowboy where Conor just steamrolls straight through him and it's over. I think this is a spot where we might have an opportunity to fade the public perception. Last time I called this, it would have been an enormous casher, and I didn't sack up and actually take it. So once again, I'm staring at this very, very hard. I think round one plays out close with these boys kind of feeling each other out. They're both so much different from when they fought the first time. Neither of them are looking to get into a, drop the gloves in the middle type of brawl. I think they're going to respect the power of one another, slow down, feel it out. And because of that, I think this fight at least gets into round two. The over 1.5 at -130 is the way I'm looking here. Over 1.5 doesn't look like a bad spot to me. Where it gets sketchy is the 2.5, because at 2.5, you're looking at the 2-minute and 30-second point of the third round. So we've got to survive 2 full rounds and then a little bit into round 3 for this bad boy to hit. The under -200 for 2.5 just seems way too chalk for me. It seems like that's the narrative everybody's leading into. And while I do think Conor McGregor probably catches Dustin Poirier at some point in this fight, I just don't know when it's going to happen. The +160 on the over 2.5 is rather enticing to me. We have seen both Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier get into the championship rounds. We've seen Conor go into the fourth with Khabib. Now, granted, that was a different style of fight, not much of a striking battle going on there, but he's changed everything. There's been a lot being made of Conor McGregor's conditioning and how he's hit a new level. He's able to last longer. He's no longer the guy that is going to gas out in the third round. And I almost feel like this might be his opportunity to show that off. And I know it's a bit old, but if we go back to his fight with Diaz, he went a full 25 minutes with Nate Diaz. He was able to fight smart, fight reserved, and take that fight deep. He did catch Eddie Alvarez in the title fight back in 2016. That was in the second round, but again, he was basically the hammer that entire time. Dustin has made a career of fighting long fights. Max Holloway, full 25 minutes, setting significant strike records for a 25-minute battle. Justin Gaethje got into round 4. Khabib Nurmagomedov, he almost made it to round 4. That one ended in the third, but again, totally different style of fighting. Dan Hooker, most recently, 25 minutes, hitting each other with everything they had to throw up until the final bell, with neither guy surrendering. I think Dustin Poirier's durability at 155 is something entirely different than it was at 145. I think the best bet that you can find here on this spot is the over 1.5. Everybody and their mom is telling you under. Maybe this is a spot to fade the public. Maybe look over in this spot. I might be doing it myself. That's Total Madness, folks, for UFC 257. Good luck on all your action. I hope you cash some of those tickets. We will see you on Saturday. Make sure you hit the like button and let's freaking roll.